There is something on this map that feels impossible, because in 1963, right here in the heart of Africa, sat one of the world's largest lakes. Lake Chad stretched across roughly 25,000 square kilometers, bigger than some entire countries. And then it just started vanishing. By 1980s, roughly 90% of Lake Chad had vanished. And for tens of millions of people, the consequences were immediate. Farmers, herders, fishermen, an entire way of life began to disappear with it. For most people, that's the end of the story. But then some engineers looked at this map and asked a completely different question. Not why is the lake dying, but what would it take to bring it back? Because far to the south runs the Congo River, the second mightiest river on earth by volume, hauling more than 40,000 cubic meters of water into the Atlantic Ocean every single second. Water that right now no one is using. The idea sounded almost unbelievably simple. Take 3% of the river's water and move it north across 2,000 kilometers to fill a lake as large as a small country. They call it Transaqua, an inter-basin water transfer whose centerpiece is a 2,400 kilometer canal fed by a system of dams on Congo's tributaries and carried all the way to Lake Chad. 8 nations, decades of blueprints, one of the most audacious things humans have ever proposed to build. I have followed this canal across the map trying to understand where it leads. Other countries have moved rivers before, because the second you move across a border, it stops being an engineering problem and turns into something far messier. 8 governments, 1 river, more than 40 years of meeting, and I wanted to find out, so I started investigating. Okay, look at this map. See this band right here. This strip running across the entire width of Africa is the Sahel. The word comes from Arabic. It means shore, and that's exactly what it is, the shore of the Sahara. The edge where the desert ends. 5,000 kilometers coast to coast from Senegal here in the west all the way to Eritrea here in the east. Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Nigeria, Chad, Sudan, more than 300 million people live in this strip of land, and it is drying out. Temperatures here are rising 1.5 times faster than the global average. Rainfall is getting more unpredictable, droughts are lasting longer, and the growing season, the window where crops can actually survive, that window is getting smaller every year. More than 20 million people in the Sahel raise livestock. That is how their families survive. The whole sector, cattle, goats, camel, they generate 15% of the region's entire GDP. There is something you need to know. This region, this strip of land that looks on every climate map like a place that is running out of everything, is sitting on top of one of the largest freshwater reserves on earth. We're talking about aquifers, water that has been sitting beneath Sahara for thousands of years, since the last time this desert was green. The water exists. The question is whether anyone can get to it before the window closes. To understand what's at stake here, you need to look at Lake Chad, or rather, what used to be Lake Chad. In the 1960s, Lake Chad's water covered 25,000 square kilometers, making it the 6th largest lake in the world. Then the drought came. By mid-1980s, the lake was just 2,000 square kilometers, less than a tenth of its former size, with dwindling water and lake divided into northern pool and southern pool, separated by a vegetated strip of sand called Great Barrier. Lake Chad, historically one of the largest lakes in the world, lost 90% of its surface area between 1963 and 1990. 90% gone. Lake Chad straddles the borders of Niger, Chad, Nigeria, and Cameroon. Today, at least 40 million people live in the surrounding region, most of them dependent on the lake for fishing, farming, and basic subsistence living. And the lake isn't just a water source, it's a civilization. For thousands of years, the communities around Lake Chad built entire economies around its shores: fishing, agriculture, trade routes, cultural identity. When the water retreated, it didn't just change geography, it collapsed livelihoods, it forced migration, and it opened a vacuum that armed groups were very quick to fill. And around Lake Chad, terrorist groups including Boko Haram and the Islamic State West Africa province have been documented controlling water points in order to dominate communities and recruit fighters. Between 2023 and 2024, security incidents within the Lake Chad basin rose by 23%. Water scarcity didn't cause this insurgency, but it fed it. Almost 4 million people displaced in the Sahel region in October 2025 due to a combination of conflicts, hunger, and climate change. This is where we are right now, and this is the problem the engineers are trying to solve. Okay, come with me down here. This is the Congo Basin, the second largest rainforest on the planet, and running through it, Congo River, one of the most powerful rivers on earth. It discharges more water into ocean than any river in the world except the Amazon. There is no shortage of water here. Look at this. Green down here, brown up here. Hundreds of billions of cubic meters of water just draining into the Atlantic. And up here, 300 million people who don't have enough of it. In 1982, an Italian engineering firm called Bonifica looked at exactly this map and they asked a simple question: what if we just connect them? Their answer was a Transaqua project, a canal 2,400 kilometers long, running from the tributaries of the Congo River north through the Central African Republic, through Chad, all the way to Lake Chad. And it would carry 100 billion cubic meters of water every single year. This wasn't a modest proposal because Bonifica wasn't just drawing a canal, they were drawing an entire economic corridor, a development spine running straight through the heart of the continent. 50 to 70,000 square kilometers of irrigated farmland, 30 to 35 terawatts of hydroelectric power, trade routes connecting landlocked Central African nations for the first time, and regional and international markets. One infrastructure project designed to restructure an entire continent, and the price, $50 billion. Now here is where it gets complicated. For decades, Transaqua sat in planning document. It was studied, debated, shelved, revived again, debated again. Then in the 2010s, something changed. In 2016, state-owned Chinese contractor PowerChina signed a memorandum of understanding with the Lake Chad Basin Commission. The following year, PowerChina agreed to collaborate with Bonifica on the proposal. China had arrived in the conversation, and that changed the funding calculus entirely. In February 2018, the Lake Chad Basin Commission officially endorsed the Transaqua project and signed a memorandum of understanding with Italy. For the first time, this wasn't just a dream, it had a political backing. It had the support of 8 nations. Nigeria's former President Muhammadu Buhari led the Chad, rallying Lake Chad Basin Commission, Cameroon, Chad, Niger, Nigeria, Algeria, and the Central African Republic, all behind it. But there is one country that has never agreed to this plan. The construction work would take place in the Central African Republic and the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Democratic Republic of Congo will bear the physical burden of this project, the disruption, the construction, the water extracted from its own basin, while being almost entirely excluded from the decision-making or even the benefit. The Democratic Republic of Congo has commented at the presidential and parliamentary level that discussions of Transaqua have not given it a space for participation or consensus building. And the Democratic Republic of Congo has a point that is hard to dismiss. 3/4 of the DRC's population has no access to safe drinking water. For a country with that level of water poverty at home, being asked to channel its national water resource northward for the benefit of its neighbor is not an easy conversation to have. Meanwhile, the French scientific community has raised environmental concerns, arguing that diverting even a fraction of Congo's flow will cause irreversible damage to one of the world's most biodiverse ecosystems. The 50 billion version of this dream is stalled, not dead but stalled. So the engineers went back to the drawing board. The Congo River carries 40,000 cubic meters of water per second. One of the most powerful rivers on earth, the engineers had been trying to divert its full right bank tributary system. But there was a cheaper, smarter, faster option sitting right there, the Ubangi River. The Ubangi is Congo's largest right bank tributary, and crucially, it flows close to the Chari River, Lake Chad's primary inflow. That connection is physically feasible without moving a mountain. A feasibility study considered a version using a dam on the Ubangi River to generate 360 megawatts of power, 250 megawatts of which will be used to pump water northward. This scheme was estimated to deliver 91 cubic meters per second of water to the Chari River at a cost of approximately $10 billion. $10 billion, not $50 billion, a fraction of the cost, a fraction of the complexity, and there is an even more elegant option. A variant would divert water from a dam on the Koto River, a tributary of the Ubangi near Brea in Central African Republic. At a high enough elevation, that water could flow to Chari River entirely by gravity, no pumping required. This scheme was estimated to deliver 108 cubic meters per second at a cost of approximately $4.5 billion. But the Transaqua ambition isn't just about Lake Chad. It is the anchor of a much broader set of investment now being mobilized across the entire Sahel belt. The Africa Water Investment Program, adopted by African Union heads of state in February 2021 and recognized as a flagship climate resilience initiative, has leveraged over $7.5 billion towards a target of $30 billion in annual additional water finance by 2030. The investment pipeline today represents a portfolio with a total project cost exceeding $30 billion, spanning water supply and sanitation, multipurpose infrastructure, flood management, early warning systems, integrated water resources management, and energy efficiency across the continent. The immediate tranche being mobilized for the Sahel, the Ubangi diversion, the Brea Gravity Scheme, the World Bank Pastoral Water Programs in Niger and Mali, the Senegal River Valley Irrigation Expansion, and the Niger Basin Authority Water Storage Investment collectively represent a capital program in the range of $15 to $20 billion. This is the 20 billion plan, the coordinated assault on water scarcity across the belt designed to work together as a system. Let's talk about what it actually takes to move water across the Sahel. The fundamental engineering challenge is elevation. Water flows downhill. The problem is that the Congo Basin sits at a lower elevation than the Lake Chad Basin in some sections, which means moving water in that direction requires a lot of energy, a lot of it. That's why the Brea Gravity Scheme is so attractive. By tapping the Koto River at altitude in Central African Republic, engineers can use the natural fall of the land to do the work. The water follows contour lines northward, no pumping, no power station. But the larger Ubangi scheme, you need energy, and that is where the integrated design becomes elegant. The proposed Ubangi Dam will generate 360 megawatts of electricity. Of that, 250 megawatts would power the water pumping system, and the remaining 110 megawatts would feed into Central African Republic's national grid. the dam pays for its own pumping, the water transfer is powered by the same infrastructure that delivers it. And a country, the Central African Republic, that currently has some of the lowest electricity access rates in the world, gains 110 megawatts of new power generation. That is what good infrastructure design looks like. Every system serves multiple functions, every investment generates multiple returns. Along the 2,400 kilometer Transaqua canal route, if it were ever built at full scale, engineers calculated the project would produce around 30 billion kilowatt hours of hydroelectric power per year, using only 6 to 8% of Congo's river's flow. For context, Nigeria currently has installed generation capacity of roughly 13,000 megawatts, much of which is never fully operational. Transaqua at full build-out will produce power equivalent to transforming the energy landscape of multiple West African nations simultaneously. The canal itself will serve as a navigable inland waterways connecting the Atlantic coast to the heart of the continent, opening trade routes that don't really exist and creating the backbone for road, rail connections running parallel to the water. This is the infrastructure thinking at the continental scale, and it's exactly the kind of thinking that built the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal. Thank you for watching. If you love definitive Africa infrastructure project like this, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comment section what you love and what you think about this project. See you on the next one.